Greetings all! So, hey everybody. I know you're probably expecting a VTP video today because, well, it's about that time. But today is going to be a little bit different, actually. Today's going to be quite a bit different. For those who are keeping count, this is actually the 50th video in that line, the big 5-0. Not in terms of, technical episodes, because some episodes are split into multiple parts, but definitely the 50th of the entire line that's been made so far as my counts are correct. So, I wanted to do something a little bit different today. Something unexpected and unique. I wanted to do a little bit of sharing. Now, this video is going to contain a little bit of personal information about myself, which I haven't revealed yet publicly, as well as some things that have been going on in the background and whatnot. So, if you're not into some of the personal stuff, I will give a timestamp as to when to expect actual information regarding the channel itself. So, with that, let's get started. First thing I would like to talk about for this video is really my history with Pokemon as a whole. And it is a long history. I was here from the very beginning. I was about 5 or 6 just when Pokemon Red and Blue first came over to the States. And let me tell you this, man. Those two games, Red especially, Red was my very first video game that I actually personally owned. It was something unique. I didn't quite know it at the time, but it was the beginning of an obsession of sorts. I don't really understand what it is that appealed to me the most, honestly. Was it the characters, the gameplay, the Pokemon? I honestly don't know. But it hooked me. And despite the fact that here I am now in my early 30s, if you couldn't guess my age, yeah, I am 31 and will be turning 32 in August. I know I don't look it. And I kind of am okay with that. I'm okay with that quite a bit. But the point of the matter is that I have done a lot of work for it. I have never left the franchise, even its highs and lows and all that. Even when people, around my age or whenever were, getting out of the franchise, or as some might put it, growing up, I didn't. And it's because Pokemon has been an incredibly important aspect of my life. It has helped me through some incredibly tough times. And as for why I have chosen it as my obsession, well, it's only in terms of video games. But for those who probably are likely not aware, and I don't mind sharing this, I am actually on the autism spectrum. I have what has been, at least in the past, coined Asperger's syndrome. It's a high-functioning form of it. They're trying to kind of erase and just mash it in with other autism spectrum disorders. It's a messy thing, and that's not what the point of this video is. But the point of the matter is, I am definitely a bit abnormal compared to your average citizen. And because of that, I've always been fixated on Pokemon directly. There have been other things in my life, but this has always been my thing. And because of it, I hold a very deep and incredibly important love for this franchise. Even though things have been a little bit rocky lately, Gen 9 especially has been a little bit hard on people, but regardless, I have stuck with it. It has got me through incredibly tough times. It has given me something to stand on, even when things have gone horribly wrong in my life, and things have happened. I won't divulge those just yet, but yeah, to say the least, Pokemon has done a lot for me, and because of it, I have done all the work I have on DeviantArt, all the work I do for this channel, all of this, and it's given me a greater sense of purpose, and I need that because what is a man without purpose, What is a man who just drudges day to day through their workload, and all that? That's not a way to live. That's not a way to thrive. And so I latched onto all of this. And it's part of the reason why I wanted to do not just my writing on DeviantArt, but to bring it to the masses here on YouTube. And it has had both good and negative effects on me. And I will get to those in a minute. Now, when it really comes to the content I put here on YouTube, I've always specialized mainly in doing, the whole family report situation. Taking a closer look at different Pokemon families and how they interact with each other, their possible real-world science that lies behind them, and that's kind of what my real specialty is. Science is my thing. Nothing, in particular that exceeds everything, although I did go to college for geology and paleontology, so there's at least that. So there's a special place in my heart for fossil Pokemon especially. But as a whole, I try to bring a little bit of realism to this world, not to, to dilute it, but, to give a sense of immersion to it that a lot of other people just really can't, you know. And there's a fine balance to it. On the one hand, if you take the games at face value, sure, beautiful, magical creatures and all this crazy shit, that's fine and all. But on the same token there are some people who take the realism way too far. I remember a long time ago there was somebody who wrote a report on DeviantArt that kind of looked at Arceus and just kind of looked at it as this extremely rare but otherwise somewhat normal animal. And, Arceus is the creator, the alpha Pokemon, the quote-unquote god of the Pokemon universe. You gotta give respect there, and so I always try to get this balance between fantasy and realism, and I think that I do a pretty darn good job at it, you know? And while that's wonderful and all, at the same time, I always want to do more, and that's why the VTP exists, the Veteran Trainer's Perspective. It's not just looking at the world of Pokemon as I usually do with the perspective of being in that world, but it's a chance for me to step back, look at things through real life, and kind of understand the franchise and how it works from that perspective. And I don't really think a lot of people do that all that much. If you're going to devote it, to Pokemon and all that, then why not just cover every aspect? If you have a specialty, sure, but you can't neglect the real-world implications of some of this stuff. And it's kind of why some of my favorite videos, even if they might be on the shorter side, one example being, the whole Pokemon fan theory of the Great Pokemon War. I made a short video of it way back in the day. Spoiler, I think it's a load of bunk. And I will include a link to that in the description below for that particular video. But regardless, I like to really think outside the box and take a deep, strong look at just what this franchise has to offer and what is really going on behind the scenes. And I enjoy it thoroughly. I really do. However, in recent times, things have been getting just a wee bit more difficult. When you've been doing this for this long, you start to wonder what material to use next. And unfortunately, the main reason why this video is even existing is I needed a break. And not just from the VTP, I needed a break from Pokemon. As I said before, every man and woman, you know what I meant, every person needs a purpose. And Pokemon has been that thing that's always been there, that safety net, that powerful force that's kept me aloft. But as much as I am a Pokeholic of sorts, I also indulge in a lot of other series. I have a lot of other favorite franchises that I enjoy. And I always like doing them off screen, and that's fine and all, but at the same time, I don't really get to make content for my channel for that kind of stuff. And it's because I like to keep things concise. I just want to focus on one sort of overall thing. But in reality, there is a lot out there that I love. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, Mega Man, the Resident Evil games. So there's just so many examples. In fact, you may not know this, my second favorite video game of all time, in terms of franchises, is actually Metroid. I am a tremendous Metroid fan, and to be blunt, I've almost entirely memorized the lore of the franchise. That is how dedicated I am to it. I am a absolute super fan. And that's important because what I've been going through the last couple of weeks is what I can only call franchise burnout. Now, you might not have noticed that because I'm uploading content at a normal pace. There's a reason for this, and there's also a reason why the next couple of weeks of videos and this video are going to have slightly different backgrounds to them. The reason why is I make my videos sort of in bulk. I make them up to a month to 2 months in advance. The reason why I do this, I think, is pretty understandable, because when new games come out or new expansions, DLC for the main series games and all that, I don't want to have to worry about juggling work here and enjoying myself with that new content or games. And so I make a lot of stuff in advance in order to give me actual time to thoroughly enjoy things. And it's not even just that, it's also the fact that, on DeviantArt, sure I make content here, but for those who don't know, most of the scripts that come from this channel originated from reports I've done in DeviantArt in the past. Now, there are differences, of course, but I kind of try and use what I have already because I already put the effort in. There's no need to reinvent the wheel by making a totally new script for everything, you know? Just add in some information here or there, and it usually works out pretty fine. But I have been going through a bit of a burnout, especially with the VTP, because again, the subjects don't always come to me easily. Sometimes it takes quite a while for me to really think of an idea that I think is at least worthy of a video. And in this case, there was a long spell where I just didn't know what to make. And so I needed to take a step back. And when I did so, I came across something very special. A game that I firmly state may be the best monster hunting / catching game in its genre that I have played in a long time. And its name is Cassette Beasts. So to explain Cassette Beasts, I will try and break things down very simply. It's sort of like Pokémon crossed with Isekai. You wake up in a world that you've never seen before, an island called New World Island, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It is a world that is populated by people, of course, but also these strange creatures called Cassette Beasts. Now, the people who have come into this world are not really originally from it. They're from other worlds that just ended up waking up one day, and here they were, in this strange island. And the creatures there are sort of like Pokemon, but there's no real catching. Instead, it is an act of recording on actual cassette tapes. And you don't just battle with these kind of monsters, you become them. With these cassette tapes that have copied monsters on them, you can actually temporarily transform into them. And it's a very unique game. It's probably one of the best examples of a game that is like Pokemon without really sharing a ton in common with Pokemon. The basics are there, the skeleton is very similar, but the way it is executed is very different, and I have to be honest, I absolutely love Cassette Beasts. It was incredibly refreshing to just have some time to play through it and really enjoy it, and I enjoyed it so much I did something kind of interesting with it. And this is going to be a bit of a brag, so warning beforehand, but it's a brag that I am happy to make. So, one of the major things that makes this game unique is that it has a fusion system. Basically, once you get so far in the main campaign, the main story of the game, you will gain the ability to, in a transformed state, fuse with a partner of your choosing in order to create a new type of cassette beast, a fusion monster. Now, there are over 120 cassette beasts in the game now. The first DLC package has arrived, and there is actually another one currently in development at the time of this video's making. And there are no overlaps in fusions. Every single combination from A, B, and B, A, that counts as two different fusions. So there are over 14,000 possible fusions now. Over 14,000, actually more than 14,500. And as far as I know of, and as far as everyone in the Discord server knows of, and even the developers of the game, I became the first person, possibly in the entire world, but at least definitely within the server on Discord, to actually complete the fusion decks entirely. All of it. And I am proud of that accomplishment. And the reason why I did it is for two things. One, because it is there. I am a completionist when it comes to playing games. If you give me an obstacle, so long as I'm not screaming my head off to try and get it done, I will get it done. And two, more importantly, there's a lot of wonderful artists out in the world, and the game has a fantastic art style to it. I am not an artist, unfortunately, but what I am is somebody that has not just time on their hands, but a desire to show my dedication. And so I did that self-challenge because it's the best way I could think of to show my love for that game. And I can go on and on about Cassette Beasts, but at the same time, I really don't want to spoil anything. So take my word from it. This is a game that you should take a look at. And it's only like 20 bucks on Steam, so it's not that huge of an investment, but it will give you plenty of things to do and is more than worth the price. Now, in gushing a little bit about Cassette Beasts, there's something I really would like to mention, and it's something that I think really makes this video belong with the other VTP videos, because if there's one important thing I have learned more than anything else, it's that having a diverse array of tastes when it comes to games is really a key factor in enjoying them to the fullest. And I firmly believe this, because as much as I love doing this channel and all the Pokemon stuff, I have to do other things when I'm not working. I have to do other franchises. I have to work with them, because it does three important things for me. One, that diversity means that it's easier for me to keep rolling out content here, because if I keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, I will get burned out. And like I said, for a time, I got burned out on Pokemon stuff. That's why I took a huge break with Cassette Beast. And I mean, the break was like more than a month, maybe a month and a half of a break from making any video content. Again, I make things far in advance, so you probably were none the wiser of that, but I needed that huge break. So, there's that. Secondly, the reason why it's important is because it really gives you a better sense of where a franchise lay when it comes to the genre as a whole. Because I like other games, I love other genres. When you're in one genre, though, it's nice to see what other people want to do with that genre, you know? Because Pokemon is fairly formulaic. It always has been for the main series games, at the very least. That's not a bad thing, but it's nice to step outside, you know, the boundaries of that system. And Cassette Beast did that for me. Again, it's very similar to Pokemon, but there was more than enough different that it was way outside the sphere of what Pokemon tends to operate on. And it gave me a new, fresh perspective on a lot of stuff. And I now can see the franchise, some of its benefits and its flaws, quite a bit more clearly. So it gives you a real perspective. And three, perhaps more importantly than anything else, if you're just going to stick with one genre, that's fine, but I recommend that you go out and try a few things here and there, because, well, to be very blunt, it has given me a greater appreciation for video games as a whole. To try all these different genres, you know, action-adventure, shooter, RPG, you know, everything under the sun. The other thing I don't touch is sports games, but that's just because I'm not a sports guy. I really am not. It's never really been an interest to me, and it's never going to be. More power to the people who love it. It's just going to be the one genre I don't touch. I mean, I did play Mario Kart Double Dash back in the game, but I don't think that really counts here. So, I really want to implore people, if you really like a franchise, if you like a genre, that's great and all, but don't be afraid to step outside the box. You really never know what you're going to find. Probably the best example is I was introduced to first-person shooters through Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. And I had only ever played Metroid Fusion beforehand. Metroid Fusion is how I fell in love with Metroid. And Prime 2 is just how I became obsessed with it. I had never played first-person shooters before, and I really don't, but the Metroid Prime series, that's my jam. Heck, I have an actual physical copy of the collector's edition, the steel tin case or whatever it is. Yeah, I have that. I mean, it's open, but that's because I play it, because I love that. And while I had the chance to play it on the Wii, I would play it over and over constantly because of just how much I love those games and how they made me fall in love with the franchise, to the point now where the only Metroid game I haven't played is Pinball, and that's because it's Pinball, I don't count it as an actual Metroid game. No offense. But the point again is that diversity in what you do, I find, is incredibly important, and it gives you not just perspective on what you do specialize in, but it really helps fill out and broaden your horizons and gives you a greater sense for where the video game landscape is really going into the future. As I would speak on any other franchise, now that I've kind of talked about what the last, month and a half or so have been like for me, there's something else I need to address here. And this is the other reason why I want to make this kind of video for the VTP. And that is to say, ladies and gentlemen, the end is in sight. I did the math, I did, calculations, I have organized things. I have a rough estimate. I will officially run out of material for, quote-unquote Pokemon Family Reports sometime around March or maybe April of next year, given the schedule that I work with. And that is both something to look forward to, I think, but also has given me pause for consideration. I always envisioned this channel to be, something that could, explode out on YouTube and all that in the early days, but I'm going to be honest, it's just not the reality. I'm happy to have, over 1,000 subscribers. To be honest, for the longest time, I didn't even think that was going to happen. And slowly but surely, the number does grow. And I've been fighting the YouTube algorithm in this the whole time. I really have. And I have some ideas of why maybe things haven't gone as I expected, because I look out there and the content that is out there, and I don't see anything like what I put out. I know it doesn't always look the most clean cut, but to be honest, I'm not a tech guy. I'm really not. That's why this all started on DeviantArt in writing. That's where I really shine. It's in my writing as a writer. This is not my forte. And a lot of the technology that I've done, I've evolved over time. That's because I learned to use new technology, diversifying what I can do, trying new things. All of it really is just me, unfortunately, throwing stuff at a wall and see if anything sticks. And I think the format that I have currently is probably the format I would like to keep. If I knew a way to sync things up better or maybe add special effects and whatnot, I would do that. But again, I'm not trained in this kind of thing. I had to learn it all from scratch, the hard way, with no help. So it hasn't been the most pleasant experience, at some points. But I've come to enjoy doing this work now because the channel is something for me. It gives me a chance to connect with people across the world. Even if it might not be a huge channel, it's still more than some others, and I can't really ask much more from that, So the question then lies, I guess, is what do I want now? Because monetization, oh sure, that's a great thing. And I can tell you what now, I've already seen commercials on some of my videos, but it's not going to pay the bills. It never will. And admittedly, and I never really wanted to say this, but I'll be honest, even with, the fact that I do technically have a Patreon account, I know that with the way I do things, at times there have been people who have supported me, but hey, times move on, and I hold no grudges against them. This is not something that's going to get me money to live off of. It is purely a labor of love at this point. But while I would have at one point been very upset with that, I've come to accept it at this point. It's just the nature of the beast. And in terms of why I can even put content out on a regular basis, there are some things going on in life at the moment, and probably for the foreseeable future, that means I'm not going to be going anywhere for some time. So, with that said, I guess the question that I've been having, and really am still a little bit struggling with, is what exactly to do when that time comes, when I finally finish looking at the entire Pokédex. Where exactly do I go? Thankfully, for myself and possibly for all of you, I have made at least 2 decisions on what I'm going to do in the future. One of which is already being planned out, and the other I will be working on in time. So, the first thing to know is that the Pokemon content for this channel isn't going anywhere, and it's not stopping. Because, sure, I will have done a report on every single Pokemon family by the time I get, again to March or April of next year, if everything goes to plan. And that's great and all, but, aside from, new generations introducing new Pokemon and all that, you would think that I would be bereft of content, but I had an idea. And I think it's both a brilliant idea and really sells what I've been trying to do this whole time, bringing real-world science and Pokemon together. I have decided that probably around the time of the last video, or possibly even, before then, I haven't figured out the time scheduling yet, but I have plans to start doing video reports about Pokemon moves. It might not seem that out of the box, and it isn't. It would seem almost second nature, but here on YouTube, I have checked. I don't see anybody really taking the time to talk about them from a realistic standpoint, to analyze how they actually function, what they involve, how they're executed, all of that and much more. I don't see it. And maybe it might not always be the most interesting of content, but it's content that isn't out there. And I would like to fill that gap. I'm already making some plans for it all. I'm not quite sure how it's going to be formatted just yet, but I do very much know, more than anything else, that it is the way for me to go. It really is. And I am not going to back down from that. I have more free time than I probably would care to have to some degree or another. And I don't always know how the upload schedule is going to be or it's going to change once we start hitting that mark, but I do know that this is something I would like to do. After all, I have done reports on all moves also in DeviantArt, so it wouldn't be that much different from what I am doing currently. So that's the one thing I've decided on. I may do abilities at some point or another, but I haven't totally decided on that yet. I probably will, because, like I said before, I am a completionist, and that comes not in the form of just games, but the work here. It's why I'm doing all this to begin with. There is something else. There is the number 2 option. The number 2 option. And I don't know how well this one will go over. I don't know. But I have decided that at some point or another, I will be doing more videos on a different franchise. I would normally say, well, make another channel for that, but my channel is small enough, I think that that's not going to be a problem. I am going to be introducing to this channel a world that I have mentioned already in this video alone. A world that I am thoroughly looking forward someday to really covering. And that is the world of Metroid. Yes, I'm going to do something I never thought I would ever do, but I'm going to be talking about Metroid. All the creatures in it, and possibly even some of the lore. And I want to do this because, again, it's my second favorite Pokemon thing in the whole world. Next to Pokemon, Metroid is my jam, as some would put it. It is something that I love dearly. And something that games I replay over and over again just because I love how they're structured, how they're designed, creature direction, information. Honestly, I wouldn't even started doing those reports if it weren't for the Prime series, because in the Prime series, we have something called the Scan Visor. You can actually scan objects and creatures to learn more about them. And I love that. I, again, am a science man, and just seeing the work that goes into talking about the creatures in those games, it has inspired me. So, at some point in the future, this channel will become a dual franchise channel. It's in the distant future, of course, but that's what I'm going to do. That is what I have decided to do with it. Do I think it's going to do much for monetization? Not really. But, hey, I'd rather be productive and do something that at least a few people will enjoy than kind of just sit around and, on my ass and watch TV or some other stuff. I enjoy being productive. I vastly prefer being productive in any fashion. So, those are things to look out for. Move reports will come in the future, and I definitely promise that. And eventually, Metroid will likely be incorporated into this channel in some form or another. I thank you all greatly for taking the time to sit down and listen to me just kind of ramble or go on a spiel, or however you want to define it, about everything that's been going on, both the present and the future. I will have to be very honest here. I love all of you. Those of you who have taken the time to subscribe to this, to watch the videos, even if you're only here to watch something here or there, because I know view counts aren't that great for a lot of my videos, but, that's expected given the format that I have, used for all my content. And I'm fine with that format. And that's how I did it on DA, and I enjoyed doing it here. Do what you do best. Do what you know. I've experimented, but at the same time, I like to keep things consistent. Regardless, this channel means a lot more to me than most people would think. It's true, I could be doing a lot of other things aside from it, but life is short. And I know that's about as cliche of a phrase as anyone could possibly give, but it is. And I have had lofty ambitions for myself, for my future. But some things that have happened lately in real life have unfortunately put them on permanent hold. And so in reality, my work here and games at this point are all that I have. This is what gets me to really get up in the morning and get to work. This is what keeps me going. So I can promise you this, as long as I possibly can, until the day eventually when this franchise ends, or when all the franchises I love end, I'm probably going to be here. This is not something I can walk away from now. I am devoted, I am dedicated, and I am passionate about it. So, I really do thank you for taking the time to listen to all this. The next VTB episode will be an official episode. I promise you that. So with that, I thank you all for your time, and I will see you later.